Okay, this is my topic, which I thought of sharing with you. Mind you, I will not be speaking very high-fi science, which I'm not really comfortable with at the moment. Neither I was comfortable in the past also. My my interest lies in trying to uh, relate the science to the society from the very beginning itself. And it was a compulsion of my profession that I shifted to something else. Nevertheless, I enjoyed that part also. But now for last couple of years, I'm increasingly involved in the activities which pertain to the society, how better we can make the society, how better we can make their environment livable, particularly focusing in the Himalayan region. So this is a big challenge coming up in the Himalaya nowadays, that a lot of government activities are going on for the betterment of the society. But at the same time, we are also concerned very much about how the climate is going to save the Himalayan face. So how good or how bad we are prepared for it, I think in the course of my presentation, I will try to dwell upon it. Okay, this is what Himalaya is all about. I have taken this particular picture from internet. Two guys are sitting on the left side are the Tibetan plate, and the guy alone is the Indian plate. We have to really always sacrifice ourselves for the existence of the Himalayas. We are subducting inside. The Himalayas are crumpled, folded, thrusted, and so on and so forth. But this beautiful compressive continental compression has given rise to a beautiful topography. This is a satellite picture which you can see, and this is for the student, not for the expert sitting over here. That we have got the sub-Himalaya, Gangetic Plain, sub-Himalaya, Lesser Himalaya, which is populated by the people. People, in fact, inhabited the Lesser Himalaya maximum. Then comes the higher Himalayan peaks with the snow-clad mountains and a lot of glaciers over there. Then comes the Trans-Himalaya and the Tibetan Plateau. This is what is the topography. Evolved due to the continental compression going on for last 35 million years or so. Now, when you plot this particular cross-sectional profile, this is a profile cuts in Naresh Rana from Haridwar to going up to the Satluj area of Tibetan Plateau in the Ganga catchment. You have got a relief here, and you have got the rainfall here. Now, if you see the topography, you get a topography which is the average one is this particular radius line, which is a relief. And this relief is beautifully segmented by the terrain boundary thrust from the south on south. I have not marked the HFT, but MBT, then MCT, both are the thrust faults, and then comes the extension regime sitting on the back of the higher Himalayan crystalline as a piggyback extensor system. And on top of it, when you plot the rainfall, you see two prominent peaks of the rainfall, one at the MBT areas, the Lesser Himalaya Shivalik Junction, second at the high Himalayan crystallines and the inner Lesser Himalaya. Kip Hodges and others love to call it a physiographic transition too, where maximum precipitation as it moves northward, it starts get arrested, and for a lot of focus rainfall, cloudbursts, and things like that happens in this particular area. Therefore, people talk about that this particular zone in the Himalaya is most critical zone. In fact, Roberts in 2006 wrote a paper of outer sequence thrusting based on in the Marshanti River, suggesting that extreme erosion can also lead to the outer sequence thrust. That paper was in debate for a lot of time. Anyway, so what is my interest here is that when I put the relief, and relief dictates the rainfall, and rainfall dictates the ecosystem. Now, if you start from the foothill, you get the Shivalik sitting at the foothill here in this particular area. Then you come to the physiographic transition 2, you get a beautiful lush green forest, which is with a lot of biodiversity in this particular segment. And then you cross over the physiographic transition 2 towards the higher Himalaya and beyond. Then you get your glaciers, which are the lifeline of the river systems. Now, as the terrain evolved through time, people are talking about when did the Himalaya attain the critical elevation. There are a lot of debates on this particular subject because we don't have the direct evidence coming from the Himalaya, because you can't get the material on which you can really work on and try to ascertain when did the Himalaya attain the kind of elevation which we see today. So people for that go to Bay of Bengal and puncture a hole and try to work on a different isotope proxy. One of the proxies is strontium isotope systematics. And based on that, they talk about that around the Miocene, the things probably would have attained the critical elevation where you can translate the snow as a precipitation into the solid precipitation. There is the snow, and probably Miocene was the time when the glacier must have been started emerging on the landscape of the Himalaya, particularly in the higher Himalaya. Mind you, there are some estimate, and I'm not really expert on tectonics, But the people who are expert on the particular subject, they say that around 400-kilometer odd horizontal layers have been compressed and lifted up so in a narrow segment. So this particular critical elevation, according to the Stonesian systematics from the Bay of Bengal, suggests that it must have been during the Miocene. Then we have got the leucogranites, which are included along the MCT and also along the STDS. They have been dated to that particular time. They go as young as I think 8 to 10 million years or so. So this was a time when the orography was attained. But the question comes that when did the man came? That is a million-dollar question. Still, people are struggling to find out. When was the man entered in this particular area? Whenever he entered, man never compromised with the terrain boundary condition. I use this particular word very frequently, that he respected the terrain and accordingly devised the methodology for its existence. Now, this is a lesser Himalayan village in the Chamoli district. You can see the houses are so beautifully balanced with the slope. They are not perpendicular to the slope, they are parallel to the slope. I don't know why, but they are there. Secondly, if you go to the transitional boundary between the Har Himalaya and the STDS, in the south of the STDS, this is a picture taken south of Malari. Santur must be knowing this. Nivir must be knowing this because they have been to this area recently, I think a couple of years ago. This is a Kosa village, beautifully balanced on the moraine. They have not really taken a bulldozer over there to level it off. They have occupied the area as it was available to them. Then you cross over to the Trans-Himalaya, that is the Himalaya after the STDS. Then you get this village is called Durunagari village. Can you see that this is the moraine which we have rated to 12 to 9,000 years? This particular moraine boulders and the houses are so beautifully assimilated that you are unable to differentiate them. So that's how the people try to live with the system, the terrain, and appreciating its limited, it's the constraints, geological constraints, ecological constraints, and then. Not only that, they knew that one thing is very important in the Himalaya is the fact that the villages in the Himalaya are not fed by the glacial fed stream. Although the glacier fed the streams, like Ganga, Yamuna, Brahmaputra, these streams contribute to the hydrological budget of the Indo-Gangetic plain, which sustains 500 million odd people in this part of the subcontinent. But the villages in the Himalaya, particularly the area which is between Sikkim to, you can say, Himachal, leaving behind the Spiti, they depend on the groundwater, and the groundwaters are recharged by this kind of depression, which in the local parlance is called khals. So when the water gets into this particular area, it percolates down, and the villages are located in the middle slope. They receive this kind of water, and that is the water is for their survival, for their sustenance, including in many places irrigation purpose. Like this village is called Sarnool village in Yamuna Valley. You can see the same water is being used by the people in the middle slope to irrigate their field. Now, not only that, the area was earthquake prone since centuries. Everybody knows about it, that area, because you are in a compressional tectonics and the stress is going to build up and periodically it is going to get released. If that happens, the houses get damaged. So what people talk about who was
sorry. May I request to mute yourself other than the speaker? May I request? Thank you. Please go ahead, sir.
Okay. So the people who, because it's an area of compressional tectonics, and the people knew that the earthquakes are a common phenomenon over here. So it was their traditional wisdom by trial and error. They started reconstructing their houses, and the houses for the construction of the houses, they use the technology which was locally available, and accordingly they build up their tie beams and the collars and the pillars and everything. So this emerges from their own experiences, and these are the two villages. One is called Sarnool village in Yamuna Valley, where I went there, and this is the village called Raithal. It's a very famous village. In 1991 Uttarkasi earthquake, a lot of people went to see this particular house. A lot of architecture guys wrote a lot about this particular house, and when I went there, I was told this house is 1,000 years old. I was really intrigued by that. By that time, one review paper came in Current Science. I forgot the gentleman's name who collected all the data on the earthquake for last 500 years or so. So I was intrigued to know how old the house is. So I went there, and I took the wood at the bottom of the foundation of this particular house, because I knew that if I take any wood in between, they must have been replaced by the people subsequently for the repair purpose. The bottom wood gave me a radiocarbon age of something like 400 odd years plus minus 20 years or so. But then again, when I got the age of the wood, that wood is the age of the tree. And the tree was the Citrus deodara. So I went back to the village again. I asked, how old trees are you guys use? He said that they said in the local language, deodar tree 100 साल खड़ा और 100 साल पड़ा. यानी कि इसको, if you have to mature a tree, so you have to, it is 100 years old, then you keep it for 100 years, and then the tree become very mature. So even I subtract 200 years, this house is at least 200 years old. So that is the beauty of the people. They learn not by engineering experts from any engineering institute, but their own all trial and error method. Here I would like to emphasize the fact that all our temples which are constructed in the high Himalaya basin largely are built on this particular technology. Now, this is what I wanted to say, that when people emerge, they never defy the terrain boundary condition, respected the terrain, and lived accordingly. Now, the question is now the climate, which is really going to make a lot of impact on everybody's life. It's not a fiction, it's not a story, it's going to become a reality. Now, when you look at a climate, now climate has got a cyclicity. I will not go into the detail, but as we move from this particular time, there is a cold climate, which is of the order of 100,000 years, which has got reals within that. Then we have got a warm climate, which is, we call it Holocene. There is a 10,000 years. Now, if everything would have been going on very fine, then we should have been slumping down to this particular area of the climate cycle. And that is not really happening. Without human interference, the glacier, according to this is what the scientists talk about, without human interference, that is anthropogenic interventions in very many forms, glacier ice sheets should have been growing now, and the next glaciers should have been knocking at our door. That is what the reality. But this Nainital should have been looked like this. This is a photograph by Pradeep Pandey taken in the month of January. We should have an extended winter, let's suppose 8 months, and very squeezed summers. But that is not happening. So then the paper came in 2012 in Nature Geoscience. They say, unless we bring down the carbon dioxide concentration, mind you, this is the culprit. This is the culprit, and without this carbon dioxide, we cannot sustain. So we have to make a choice whether we leave CO2 or we go for the CO2. How do we really make a balance? That is what the fight was going on in 2015 in Paris conference. Now in Glasgow, recently in the Glasgow, how to cut down the CO2 in order to reduce the temperature, which is really increasing in a phenomenal level. So the paper says that we have to bring it down to 240 ppm by parts per million by volume, so to set the next glacial stage. But will that be possible? They also made a calculation using the model simulation, saying that if you do nothing today, cut down everything in terms of pumping the CO2 into the atmosphere by various processes, it will take at least 1,500 years plus minus something to really come down to 240 ppm, which looks to be a very distant dream. Now, I must salute this gentleman, Charles. This is again not for the experts sitting in this particular talk. I use for the students. I brought this particular slide. Charles David Keeling, the great Keeling curve. Everybody knows about it. This is what the science is all about. This is the dedication is all about. This gentleman started making the measurement in 1958 and continued till his death in 2005. And he published the very first paper in TELUS in 1960. Mind you, not all great paper comes in Nature and Science. Sometimes you put a paper in a small journal, it has got a tremendous implication in time to come. So he indicated very first time that there is anthropological contribution to global warming by way of CO2. And the station which you put very meticulously selected in Mauna Loa in Hawaii. Fine. So now, the problem is why I'm discussing this, because I'm discussing this in the sense that when we make a planning, any planning, particularly in the Himalayan region, we have got least appreciation for the impact of climate change on our development strategies. We think that the things as they were happening in the past, they will continue to happen in the future. That is what I'm emphasizing on this particular aspect, and try to qualify this statement as I proceed my presentation. Now, this is the kind of contribution going on in terms of CO2 emission taken from this website. Naturally, America tops, followed by China, and Europe. There is 28 countries, the European Union, followed by China, and India comes below now here. So naturally, these three major players are playing a havoc to the global warming. God knows what happens, whether they were going to cut it down or not, we do not know. But they are going to set the humanity at the brink in time to come if they don't follow. Now, this IPCC 6th assessment report, which just came before the Glasgow conference in UK, it was really horrifying. The report says very nicely, one of the lead authors says, who contributed toward the climate change, I think I forgot his name, this gentleman says that simply scientific validation of the general public that yes, what you feel is actually true, that climate change is happening. You don't have to go for a intricate scientific, jugglery to really prove that. But anyway, system wants that kind of jugglery. I'll come to that as I proceed. Writing on the wall is there. Arctic sea, this report says that Arctic ice coverage has been lower over the past decade that it has been in last 1,000 years. Can you believe this? It's horrifying. Global retreat of glacier is unparalleled in the last 2,000 years. Oceans are heating up at the pace not seen in last 11,000 years. That is the beginning of the Holocene climatic optima, termination of the last glacial maxima. Moderate emission scenario. The scenario means if we are doing the way we are using the developmental activity today, if we continue doing that, the temperature rise was going to become 2.5 to 3.5 degrees centigrade, above 1.5 to 2 degrees centigrade. That was the limited down in Paris Climatic Agreement. We are doing nothing. So this is what the writing on the wall. Now, this is what we're going to suffer. We know that how the floods are really creating havoc to us, typhoon, cyclones, forest fire, and so on and so forth. Now, one of the report which was brought out by the Ministry of Earth Science, I think it's a Ministry of Earth Science report, where Savine and Krishnan in 2020, they suggested that human induced, I think how they calculated the human induced component, I'm not really aware of that, but it was very interesting for me that at least there is a way to really quantify the human contribution. There is 0.2 degrees centigrade per decade is the human contribution in the Himalayan region. And particularly, as everybody knows that if you go to the Har Himalaya, they are more climate sensitive. The temperature it will rise around, its contribution is around 0.5 degrees centigrade per decade. There is horrifying situation. Now, what is happening in Himalaya? This is the picture I took in a place with one of the students, Pinky Beast and Naresh Rana. I think probably he is also there. This is a place called Kosa Village. Kosa Village, how the humans are contributing to temperature change. Not that the people who are living in the Himalaya are really the saint in the sense that they are not doing anything wrong with their terrain. I'm not saying that they are the major contributor to the climate change, but certainly out of compulsion, out of greed, there are groups, there are people who are tampering with the ecosystem. This is not a volcano. This is not a volcano. Kosa Glacier is very close to the Malari, and this is the fire incidentally lit by the villagers. For what you know, because they wanted to create the temperature rise as well as not the temperature rise, that's not an important thing, but to generate black carbon so that it falls on the snow and melts it out. Why they want to melt it out? Because they wanted to go for this fungus. And this fungus, one fungus fetches them 2,000 rupees in the market. So you will find these days in the Himalaya, right from the eastern Himalaya to the western Himalaya, in the summertime, the villagers are there up in the pastures with their bugles, drums, cricket bat, and loudspeakers and enjoying their area, collecting this particular herb. So that is our contribution to the global warming. Now, if that warming is going to become true, this is Theophilus, he stays in Munsiari, dedicated his life for the cause of Himalaya. This is the situation of the Tigri Dam. If you look, this is Cheniali Sound. When the water level goes down, probably for the maintenance, probably they have released the water. But imagine a scenario when the glaciers are going to retreat, contribution is going to reduce significantly. This particular scenario is going to become like this. Can we sustain them? Have we thought about it? Certainly not. Certainly not. I must tell you the faulty planning of this kind of projects where they have not taken into consideration how the discharge varies in the winter comes from a project which I will discuss with you from the Alaknanda Valley. That we can make follies, we can really make a mistake. That is because of the fact that the guys who are making the planning for the Himalaya, in order to exploit, I am using a word with a sense of responsibility, exploit the resources, have no idea how the hydrological system behaves in the different seasons. Okay, now this is what is now the sign in the Himalaya are emerging out. Certainly, glaciers are showing a recessional trend. This is a glacier not named. It's an unnamed glacier in the Suru Valley of Janskar Range. 2006, you can see there is it's a sub-glacier basically hanging one. It is falling here, and now in 2015, it has gone backward. Now another one it comes from the Nankun Massif in the Parkachik area. You see the glacier snout here at the river, which is the Suru River going on in 2021. You can see the whole thing is debris covered. So indeed, glaciers are responding to the climate change. Certainly, yes. But how Is it a manifestation of last 10 years or 15 years or 20 years? We do not know that, but it is responding. Okay. Now, this is the Siachen Glacier where I worked for last 3 years, in 3 years from 2010 to 2013. And this is the kind of a cliff of a glacier, not a glacier. I must put the fact straight here. This is the dead ice which has detached from the umbilical cord. And these are our Siachen Jawans who are doing their exercise on the cliff of this thing. Now, 2010, this is the situation. 2012, when I went there, it is collapsed. And 2013, I went there, it is disappeared. If I want to make a sensational statement saying that the horrible things are happening, I must be sensible enough to make a scientifically sensible statement. This is definitely due to the warming, but certainly it did not have a supply from the snout of the glacier because of surging behavior of the Siachen, it got detached. But then a paper comes in Glaciology in 2016 by Bhattacharya. He tells a nice thing, which I was also advocating with many people, that whenever we talk about the climate change and its impact on the glacier, we always talk about the glacial length. Now, glacial length change is a delayed response to climate change, whereas the glacial mass balance is a more direct and immediate response. So when we talk about glacial mass balance, this takes time, this takes efforts, this takes a lot of logistics. We always circumvent it. Therefore, to conclude about the glacial response to climate change, important is glacial mass balance study and not the glacial extent. Unfortunately, whatever glacial studies have been done in the country, everybody went with the 1962 topographic maps, located the position of the snout, and then he went back in 2021, measured the distance vacated, and tells that this much is the recession rate in the last so many years. That is indicative, but not climate sensitive. And this led Jairam Ramesh in 2009 to make a statement. And it's a very important statement he made. We don't need to write the obituary of the glacier, but we need to we need a concentrated effort and policy focus on the Himalayan ecosystem, since the truth is incredibly complex. And this comes out after the Hasnain's episode, that everybody must be knowing that when he made a statement that by 2035, the Himalayan glacier is going to go away. Horrible thing happened out of sight and out of not following the scientific norms. Therefore, so what happens? Glaciers are indeed responding, of course. What is the rate of responses? We do not know that. How much temperature rise is going to implicate how much reduction in the mass balance? We do not know that. But we certainly know that it is impacting our cryosphere. So that study needs to be carried out by the researchers in the coming year. But now, the second important component of the Himalaya is the deforestation and the flash floods. Now, this is a big debate. This is a big debate on whether deforestation causes the flash flood or the flash floods are independent of deforestation. Now, before that, I just want to give you a brief summary of the human occupation. What are the evidence in the area so far? This is the near famous village of Malari, and the red dot is the place where the cave was located by my friend Professor Rakesh Bhatt. And this is the cave where myself, Sundyaji and his team went in 2021. Cave is destroyed now, but in 1984 or so, 87 to 88, they excavated this particular cave. Cave is here, you can see that, and they've got a lot of artifacts, and which they have assigned, not dated, based on the typology, because they could not get a proper dating material. They had bones, but nobody willing to really extract the Callaghan for them and to date it. So it comes out to be 3,000 years. So we can say that, and then there are corroborative evidence where the ages have been obtained on the similar artifacts. It comes out to be this particular time period. So certainly in the central Himalaya, in the upper Ganga catchment of Alaknanda Valley, the man must have come around 3,000 years or so. Now, and then there is another evidence. There is another evidence. The paper comes in Holocene in 2017 from Mandakini Valley, where based on the pollen, people have talked about the human emergence in the area around 4,000 years, and that is based on the presence of cannabis. And cannabis fibers are being used by the local people in the past to make the fibers. So that's why they start talking about the 4,000 time somewhere when the forest started getting deforested, because the forest pollens were getting reduced at the expense of the grassy and other pollens. So that 3,000, 4,000 is a period you can say that the man started coming and occupying the Himalayan region. Was he massacring the terrain? Probably not. But he was trying to live with the terrain in a harmonious manner, because we haven't got such kind of huge frequent event of flash flooding from 4,000 years to say present. But in the last 200 years or so, things have changed very drastically. Now, so we also are trying to work it out in a place called Benital. This is just at the physiographic transition 2 at the saddle of a MCT. And this particular lake is being excavated by us. And we have got some evidence coming out now in the form of charcoal, which is, of course, very dicey stuff. It's not a very straightforward stuff to use charcoal as an indication of the human occupation, particularly when we are using a micro charcoal. That is a charcoal having a size grain of 50 microns or so. But nevertheless, we do find a very exciting evidence. This is not really done. We are working on this particular manuscript. A lot of people are there. There we got a charcoal. You can see these are micro charcoal, and these are the different proxy we are taking. I'm not going to go to the detail, but we do find an evidence of 6,000 to 4,000 here. Then we get up to 2,000, and then we start getting very concentrated charcoal in the last 1,000 years or so. We are trying to work it out how this relate to human activity, or is it a purely natural phenomena that will come to. But there is some indication that indeed the forests were getting, and we have got a record going back to 10,000, but we don't get this much of charcoal in that particular time. So that also gives us some strength in our argument that indeed the man started colonizing this area after 6,000 or so. That is what we feel. And I think some evidence come from Pradeep's work, I think, in this area, from Kedarnath also. He also talks about, on the similar line. Now, so that was the time when the man occupied the area. Around 5,000 years ago, man must have come in this particular area. But what really happened to the terrain, or what had happened to the ecosystem, is certainly after the post-industrial era. And this is Arnold Tybee, a great philosopher, a very good historian. He said that pre-industrial man, the hunter and cultivator, managed to make nature minister to his need without going to war with her. This is what he said. But then, when he was flying way back in early 840s from Rawalpindi to Gilgit, he made the following observation, which is really touching for me, and I feel so charged to read them, because he was so sensitive to the whole thing that he started anticipating that how the Himalaya is going to be plundered. Are the Himalaya really secured as you are flying over the peaks? Really secure against the man's assault? Because man is now armed with scientific technology. That was the worry. This worrisome sign he raised in the early 40s. Maybe, he says further, it now be within man's power to desecrate the Himalaya if he finds this economically profitable and militarily advantageous. And this is what is coming so true, which he said in 1940 or so. Now, taking back you to a snapshot now, now I'm coming back to the time when we started populating this particular terrain. If I don't want to go into detail, people must have heard a lot about it. The Gona Lake, 1894. This lies in the Kelkjon of Jola Chamoli. That means in the south of the MCT. This particular scarp, which you see here, glided down from the mountain cliff, obstructed a river called Gona Lake, and this is the kind of estimate made by these people over there. What is important, I want to show you the Arnold Heim and Augustine Ganser, when they were on their way to map the central Himalaya. And these are the people who identified first time the MCT near the Helang. They were sitting at the bank of this particular lake and taking their lunch. And this is what myself and Sundhyaji went in 2021, September or so. The lake looks like this. Now, this phenomena of the landslide, formation of the lake, was to do nothing with the deforestation. It was a purely natural process that happens in the southern mountain front, where the intense monsoon precipitation impinge upon crumpled, fissile, and highly pulverized lithology. And this lithology, mind you, is dominated by slate, dolomite, and limestone. This happens. But this one which happened here, when you see the lake is completely disappeared, which we worked on, because this destruction of the lake led to a famous movement called the Chipko movement, and the pioneer of the movement was Sundarlal Bhogna and Chandi Prasad Bhatt. They advocated that not only this lake but many other destruction that happened in 1970 July 20th July was due to large-scale commercial deforestation. Okay, but the debate, I said, in the Himalayan flood and deforestation is always there. People say that deforestation indeed increases runoff and sedimentation, leading to flooding. And but then they say that has a trivial effect on erosion and thus flooding. They say that it can increase the runoff and sedimentation, But it can also lead to the flooding. But some of the others say that it can have a trivial effect on the erosion and thus flooding. Perception, they say, oversimplistic, no rigorous, reliable data. This is the people that Evers and Marcel and Evers, these are the people who advocated this hypothesis. Now, we went there in 1996. We wrote a paper, International Journal of Remote Sensing, based on the conjectural relationship between deforestation and the flood. We showed that the catchment from where the flood was generated was deforested between 1959 and 1969. We had the working plan data. We have made the estimations on the basis of the working plan images. Of course, there was very crude images. And based on that, we said that, of course, there was an intense rainfall, not as intense as the 2013 June rainfall in the Kedarnath area. That particular, because of the barrenness of the slope in the physiographic transition 2, led to this deforestation. When we came out with this particular suggestion, people say it's a circular argument, not true. Then comes a work by Watson and others. Pradeep was also there in this particular work, that the validation comes in a more robust proxy where we use the isotopic fingerprinting using epsilon, neodymium, and optical dating. Why I'm telling all these things? I'm saying that a science which we do for a fundamental research can be make use to nail a hard-hitting societal point of view. Now, and the deforestation, the commercial deforestation, which I'm talking to you, was started by this gentleman who is sitting over, who is here. His name was Mr. Wilson. He was a deserter from British Army in 18th century and moved back to Harsil, where he made his house near Harsil, 20 kilometers before Gangotri. And he said to the Maharaja of Tir at that time that I can give you revenue through your forest. He said, how? There are no roads. He said that I will use the river as a conduit to transport the wood. And that's from this gentleman, the commercial deforestation in the Himalaya sets in the early 18th century. Well, so then these are the paper which emerges out from the study, which demonstrate now very clearly that indeed the flood in this area during the last 1,000 years or so, or 2,000 years or so, had some impact on the impact of deforestation in this area. Particularly, the 1970 flood was caused. The majority of sediment in the 1970 flood was generated from the area which was deforested during 1959 to 1969. Therefore, in Himalaya, deforestation cannot be ignored as one of the factors responsible for triggering and amplifying the flash floods. Now, this is the location from where somebody must be knowing. This is Manoj Jaiswal. Now he's in IISER Kolkata when he was doing his PhD. So we have got the flood sequences sitting over there in the deposit, logged in some of the valleys in the Alaknanda Valley, where you can go and investigate them and reconstruct the scientific story of how the flood occurred. And this is what we worked out based on our work, that 55% of the sediment during 1970 flood were generated from this particular catchment. And this is, mind you, is a transitional boundary between the higher Himalayan crystalline and the lesser Himalaya. And that's why I demonstrated that forest deforestation and flash flood relationship. Now, lastly, the last part of my presentation is that societal need versus ecological vulnerability. When we talk about that Himalaya is being tempered badly, we have no appreciation for its sensitivity, we have no appreciation for its ecological diversity, then question comes that are we really compromising somewhere? So this I will just I will try to explain in a couple of slides as they follow. The sediment symphony. This is very important. Bandyopadhyay and Ghosh. Bandyopadhyay is from IIT. I am Kolkata. He writes very beautiful things on the Himalaya, and one of the very good expert on this particular subject. Of course, he's a manager, but he has got a lot of sensitivity towards the ecosystem responses to climate change and human interventions. He said the Himalayan river constitutes a combined flow of water, sediment, and energy. Now, problem is here, when we construct a hydropower project in the Himalaya, we think that only we should take into account the floods. And when we say flood, we talk about the water. They forget that we are dealing with a system which is in an area having plentiful of the sediment. It's not a sediment limited, the area is transport limited. Now, high Himalaya, if you talk about it, North MCT, has sequestered around 14% of sediment left behind largely by the receding glacier and depend valley. This is a Bloch and Cruz paper in EPSL 2013. So we should know all these things. This information is known to us. Therefore, how the sediment symphony creates havoc. It's not a symphony. It's really create a havoc when that happens. Now, for example, look at this particular location where we are working. Professor Satish is standing here. This is the Mandakini Valley, which was devastated in 2013 flood. The inscriptions are engraved on the sediment record. You have to look at the boulder side, look at the scale over here. This is the lower section, it's the upper section. This valley is known for transporting enormous quantity of extra large debris, maybe in a hyper concentrated debris flow events. We knew this. When we knew that this is, if we would have really appreciated this particular processes, then the roads which we have constructed very close to river is just close to this place. If you knew this, the roads which we would have constructed, we should have taken into account this kind of extreme behavior of the river, which we have not. So this is a sediment symphony, one example. Now, second example of sediment symphony is that Eastern Dholi Ganga. It was filled by 2.8 million cubic meter of the sediment just in one day. Look at the area. Just in one day flood in 2013. Now, Mandakini Valley, you look at the road, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are the bends you can see. And Mandakini River was here, something like 29 meters. Okay, now look at one event. Now only 3 roads are there. This is a sediment symphony there. Now look at the Srinagar, the intellectual city of Uttarakhand, where we have got a central university located. Now this was the sediment eroded, the sediment which was eroded in 2013 of this particular magnitude at this particular location and this particular location. Okay, and what happened? Look at this particular arrow of mine. This arrow is on a building called ITI. The building is here. On 17th, entire area was flooded. 18th, you can see the water recedes. You get this mud, and these are the one which is squeezed out. These are taken by Naresh Rana, and this paper was published in episode in 2015. Professor Nijal is the lead author. Now, what we were trying to do, now again the science comes to picture here. Now, when we said that this particular muck, which was moved from University Stadium of this much quantity and Kotesar Dam location, which was upstream of that, of this much quantity, the project proponent said that this is wrong. This sediment have come all the way from Kedarnath, and our project has to do nothing with the flooding. Then what we did, my one great friend, Anil Shukla, who is a geochemist, so he took up this particular task. What we did, you know, that this is a north terminal thrust. And we have got a quadrioid sitting over here. We have got a phyloid sitting over here. Now that these are the areas where the the muck hydropower project muck was dumped at the bank of the river, which is this much quantity. Now what we did, we just did simple analysis, chemical index of alteration. We know that the quadrioid will have low values and phyloid will have higher values. So now these are the 2 end member we took, and then we sampled the muck along the river. And we found by 2 end member mixing model that the contribution of this sediment was 47% to 23% as you move from the dam axis downstream. And this was the cause for the flooding and destruction of the lower Srinagar town. Why I'm emphasizing on this? Based on this study, NGT put a fine of 9 crore rupees. It was submitted in the Honorable Supreme Court as an affidavit. So science in one side, and science can be applicable to the society in other side. So that was a great contribution of the simple science for the society. This is another paper we wrote in 1983. The first person is Chandi Prasad Bhatt, the Raman Magsaysay awardee, the Padma Shri, the Padma Bhushan. Many awardees under the belt, and this man is only 10 class pass. He told us, when I passed my master's way back in 80, that please go and investigate Vishnupriya project, which is in the R&D stage. Now, this man of 10 class standard had a tremendous wisdom gained through the experiences working in this area. He said, go, because this project is a risky venture. It cannot sustain. Way back in 1980, he told us. And when I went there with my friend Mahendra Singh Kumar, he's the director of Himalayan Research Action Center in Dehradun now. We went there in adverse climatic conditions. We made some of whatever little we knew that time was very fresh masters from the college. We wrote this particular article published in the Chia volume. In Nainital, Professor Waldia, late Professor Waldia was heading this particular thing. It was published. We wrote Vishnupriya project, a risky venture in high Himalaya. It was not even conceived on the ground. It was in R&D stage. And we wrote this particular thing. What happens now? See, this is the project of Vishnupriya. 15 kilometers before Badrinath. This is the project nobody can think that it can ever get destroyed by extreme weather event. What Chandi Prasad Bhatt told us in 80s came true in 2013. This is the project. This is what exactly happened, what he conceived it. Now and this is the 400 megawatt project, mind you, 400 megawatt project in an area where the meltwater contribution is maximum, rain comes subsidiary over here. They never bother what is going to happen to aquatic biodiversity downstream of the barrage, because you need water for the aquatic biodiversity sustenance. No, who cares? Just put a barrage over there, make a diversion tunnel, and take all the water to generate electricity. Now, what is happening? Every monsoon, they have to put a bulldozer to remove the muck which is continuously coming to the reservoir, so that they get some pond there, and there is a diversion tunnel on the right side, so that they are trying to generate some electricity. Second one, now this is about the hydropower project which is going on. I'm not going to dwell much on that, but another aspect which is very, very critical and very, very important. This is what is going to be is being debated these days in media and everywhere. The widening of the roads in the Uttarakhand Himalaya in the name of Char Dham project. Now this is quite what do you call it? It's a issue which is very sensitive. Some people talk about that. Whoever go against it is anti-development. Who goes for it, he is for the development. But some of the feature I would like to tell you. When we went through this particular project proposal and their DPR, detailed project report, the very horrifying thing was this, that they bypass the environmental impact assessment. Listen to me carefully. They bypass the environmental impact assessment of the roads, because there is a law which says that if the road segment is less than 100 kilometers, you don't require the EIA. Now, the total road length in this area is, I think, 889 or say 900 kilometers, which is supposed to be widened. What the government did, that they segmented this 900 kilometer road into 53 segments and brought it to less than 100 kilometers. And then they said that no EIA is required, go for it. We argued that Himalayan road does not follow a single contour. It follows multiple contours in a very short distance. And this is an example of Josimath. Helang is somewhere from where the MCT crosses. This is the Helang here, and this is Alaknanda River. From this point, 1,500 meters is the river bed. And if you go to Oli, it's 3,000 meters. In 10 to 15 kilometers, you puncture different ecological zones. How can you do this? How can you do this? And don't you think that the people who try to support the bypassing of EIA are not intelligent enough that they do not know it? They all know it. But the honesty demands, and that honesty has to come within themselves and not from the outside. That's one example. Second example is the Tanakpur to Pithoragarh. This is a very important area. Tanakpur to Pithoragarh is another area which is being widened. Now, this particular area, if you see that we have got three thrusts. Himalayan frontal thrust goes from Bastia, the Sukhidan, the MBT, and the South Almora thrust, very close by. And this is the cross-section profile, if you see, made by Kothari. You can see the MBT is being splayed over the middle Sivalik rocks. Now, in this area, we suggested that please do not widen here. Please, when you can make a Bhagranangal dam on the clay of Sivaliks, you can also make a tunnel. You have also already made a tunnel in Haridwar area. Sorry, in the Dehradun area, in Haridwar area. Why can't you go for the tunnel? No, nobody will listen. And now this is the situation there. The road is slumping over here, and this is a particular landslide which was triggered in 1920. Unimaginable. It's 1920 landslide. It is affecting this is not the same road. This is another road, but the widening road is going on very close to this particular landslide. Why they cannot see things which is so naked in front of their eyes? Now, second example, this is a picture I've taken in 2021. This is a Google image of a landslide which is called Kalyasor. Everybody knows it. Two names are there for this landslide. One is called the Sirobagar and the Kalyasor. This is Alaknanda River, which is moving like this. Now, this landslide was worked by many people. A lot of PhDs have come. I think I'm told that more than 100 crores have been spent on this particular landslide in order to prevent it, to understand it and to prevent it. Nothing happened. Finally, under the Char Dham project, they said we will bypass the road. Now, what is the bypass alignment? They are making a bridge here, go at this side, and then they are making a road in this area. And these are the Holocene fluvial terraces. There is a village and hard rock is behind. When I countered the engineers who made this alignment, they said, sir, we know what you are talking about is absolutely correct. But the DPR given by the scientists is this. So we have to follow this particular alignment. And this is the situation now there. Now, the whole thing is that we have escaped one landslide, which was active from 1969 onwards till today. Now we wanted to bypass it, and we are bypassing through the Holocene gravels, Now we have to put this kind of wall in order to prevent the subsidence. Will that ever happen? Answer is certainly no. Now this is another landslide. This is in the Uttarkasi area. I'm talking because this I'm addressing to the geologists. Now the geologists are the backbone of our society, in the Himalayan society particularly. And I demand really, honestly, I demand a significant honesty from them. Why I'm saying this, not to the gathering sitting over here, but the gathering whom I deal. They speak something different when it is being asked by the government. And they speak something different when they come to the public. Of course, they don't open their mouth in the public if they're supporting the government on a wrong reason, not in the right reason. Now, this is called Bhatwari. Now, Bhatwari, if you see, there is 3 layers of road. One road was here first, the second road was here, and the third road is here. And then this particular area, which is coming from the Dayara Bugyal, Dayara is a pasture on the top of it, is creeping, it's aseismic creeping. It's not a seismic creeping. It's an aseismic creeping, 12 to 20 millimeter per year. The paper came by Yadav et al. Galoch is also there. A lot of people are there. This paper came in 2020. They know it. Why you are widening this? They have not started the widening work, but certainly they are going to widen this also. Another one is the beautiful example of this particular tunnel called Chamba Tunnel. You might have heard this particular subsidence of this tunnel. This tunnel, when this happened, this constructed, it was portrayed in the newspaper that this tunnel was made by the Australian technology. Come on. In Australia, we don't have the Himalaya. And 500 crores have been spent on this. Now, this is the entry point of the tunnel. Now, I just have taken this picture in 2021, September only. The entry point of the tunnel. Now, the exit point. Now, see, the tunnel is here. And you see the road here. Entire road has gone down. They never appreciated the fact that there is 2 streams. One is coming from here. Second stream is coming from here. And this entire column is there. Unless you create a proper reinforcement, the road is not going to sustain. Now, I'm not saying anything new. Late Professor Waldia said, all-weather road for Char Dham pilgrimage could prove meaningless as it was being planned on the floodway of Ganga Basin in Garhwal, Himalaya. Now, another example, 162 crore wall. This is 162 crore wall near Lambagad, close to Badrinath. Is a perpetual problem for the pilgrimage. That was very good thing because this is an avalanche debris sitting over here. Every monsoon they fall and create havoc. So government decided, based on the expert recommendation of the people from various institutes, so we should make a wall, we can protect it. And this is the line which I'm showing is a Sark glacial meltwater channel line, and which every time create destruction. Here you can see from the boulder. What happened in May 2021 is this. You see the terminal point, the whole road got washed away. So this what Professor Waldia said is absolutely correct. Why they are not heeding to the suggestion of the experts. Now, this is the Kedarnath road which I showed you. Look at the road. We said that new road should be planned in a higher elevation on the rock surface, but the same road is being widened, which was completely destroyed in 2013. Now, now it's not the government of India is not bothered about it. Now, the Niti Aayog has given us Himalaya calls for a new development narrative. This is what a summary report in 2018. Now, what they say, development must be fully embedded in the environmental, social, cultural, and sector tenets of the Indian Himalayan region. This is what they say. That the demand-driven economic growth led to haphazard urbanization, environmental degradation, and so on and so forth. Concern over they put a concern over seriously compromising the unique values of the Himalayan ecosystem. This is what the government of India is saying. When you yourself, the system is saying, warning us, suggesting us, then why we are not heeding to their suggestions? There is a report by the Uttarakhand government on climate change. Very good report, fantastic report in 2014. What we should be doing, what we should not be doing under the climate change scenario. But nobody is bothered to implement those reports. Now, this scenario, I'm coming to an end. 2013, Naresh is sitting with me here. Myself and Naresh Rana were there after the flood in 2013 in the Mandakini Valley. This school is constructed at the bank of the Mandakini River. And look, it was Sunday, I think. No student was there in the school. The entire roof is filled with the flood sediment. The water level was here. Imagine if the students would have been there, what would have been the fate of those students? Then you see the snapshot. I'm going continuously there. 2013, December, you see the small thing is coming up. February, you see another structure is coming up. Then March, you see the structure has come up. Then the wall has come up. Now, fortunately, in 2020, it looks they have abandoned it. We don't learn from the warning that has been given to us time again by the nature. Another one, this is the place of the seat of excellence, a seat of learning, the Central University of Uttarakhand, that is Srinagar Garhwal. From this particular point, the road goes to their main campus. This school you see in a Nala. The school is a school and a Nala coming up. Then it's in 2008. 2014, I went there, it's built up. Now again, I went 2021, look at the condition. Whom to blame? Whom to blame? And we have got a Disaster Mitigation Institute supposed to give us guidance, guidelines, and other things, what we should be doing, what we should not be doing. But what is happening on the ground is something absolutely different. Now, this one I clicked in November 2021. This is a hotel coming up on a river bed. Just you move from Rishikesh 30 kilometers. Don't you think that the authority do not know about it? How can they do it? Who is going to be accountable for this? This is a stream. Will this structure ever sustain? Now, we may be publishing paper where we are also party to some of the publications. We may be publishing paper, but so what? Publish one thing. And one thing I must tell you, when we publish the paper, very rarely in a paper pertaining to the societal implication of environmental hazard, we never speak the truth. I will not name the person, but I must put it on record. When the first paper appeared on the Rishiganga tragedy, a kind of report, the gentlemen who were there in the paper never wrote a single line on the force amplification caused by two barrages. One at Rainy Village, second at Tapover, where 200 people perished. We are not able to retrieve the body. Nobody spoke in that paper that it was the force amplification caused due to the obstruction by the barrages. Because 2013 we failed to learn the lesson that river was gagged. Its courses were occupied by various activities, including the hydropower project. Comes 2013, June 15, 16, and 17, river washed it away, took back its own course. Same thing happened in this area, because I told you earlier, this is the area which lies in the paraglacial zone, which is not sediment limited, but transport limited. The sediment is like an army waiting for a command, and command comes in the form of cloud burst. When that triggers, it creates the havoc. Mind you, in Rishiganga, there was not much water. The distance of travel, Naresh is here. He did a very good calculation on the discharge and computation of the flood peak and things like that. It was not very much water. But the disaster happened so it amplified, caused by those barrages. Not a single paper wrote, unless or until the paper comes in Science by Sauger from Canada, and there those people become author. And when he says that, it is because of the human folly. One of the components of human folly, they just go and beat the wagon. So I request people don't be so fast. As we are trying to be very fast in putting the publication across, think about it. And the message comes from these two gentlemen, Professor V.C. Thakur and Professor Singhvi, that dhire chalo, and that is the best way to solve the Himalayan problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Navinji. Thank you, Navinji, for an excellent talk that we're waiting for. And I'm sure there will be a lot of queries from the audience. Now the house is open.
I like to go to the zoo.
I think I will request someone first to start the thing. I would start with Professor Dhruva Mukhopadhyay, sir.
I was listening to Professor Jewell's lecture with awe and wonder, especially about that Char Dham road which is being constructed, and he showed devastating it would be, and this has been going on for a long time. So what can we do to prevent such things? How can these things be stopped? And how can government be persuaded to listen to the voices of people like Professor Jewell?
Sir, I think what you said is really the concern of many of us, not me alone, many of us. We have no power. We have only a power of our little bit of knowledge, and that knowledge we should really put honestly across the table. What happens, sir, in this particular case of Char Dham, when you raise the question, a committee was constituted, and I have got no hesitation in saying that. I was one of the part of the committee constituted by the Honorable Supreme Court. I was searching for the support from the scientists, not from the bureaucrats in the committee. Unfortunately, myself and one gentleman, he is also a scientist, but he has become a sadhu. He is a PhD in nanophysics from JNU, and he has become a full-time sadhu, 35, 40 years guy sitting in Uttarkasi. We two were fighting tooth and nail, putting our viewpoint across scientifically, not otherwise. But we were gagged. Not a single support come from anybody. And when we were not getting any support, but we put our foot down. We put a note of dissent and we put our thing across, not in an emotional manner, in a very scientific manner. And we are very happy that Honorable Supreme Court not only heeded to our request, but there was already a rule by the Central Road Authority that in the Himalaya, we should go for minimum excavation. And that word comes intermediate road width. That means you should not be excavating more than 8 to 10 meters from the valley side to the valley flank. That is what already there. So that, and along with our fight, we did that.
But the Supreme Court has recently, in its judgment, cleared the construction of the Char Dham in the name of the defense necessities.
Yes, sir. Very much correct, sir. Very much correct, sir. It really cleared it up. When this was happened, when the judgment came, after the judgment came, I think there was a request by the defense, and defense request is very important. We cannot ignore the defense request. Defense said that we want a wider road. And then again, the thing came back to the committee. We came back to the committee. Ravi Chopra was the chairman of the committee, and with the rider saying that we should give the report in 1 month time, and that was the deadline. We again gave the report. We stood by our this thing earlier recommendation by the 3 people, saying that we want a disaster resilient road and not a disaster prone road. Choices between you. And why we are saying that if you go for this much of width to this much of width, how the disaster is going to happen. That is all the story we gave, all the data we gave. But finally, because since it's a defense thing, we cannot comment anything on that. And now the defense, for the defense purpose, out of 5 roads, 3 have been allowed to go for 10-meter widening, 10-meter cutting. That means, remind you, when you ask for a road width of 10 meters, you require right of way of 25 to 30 meters. That means that much of area is given to you. That means you can cut the forest, everything in order to construct the road. So the point is, whom to blame? Whom to blame? Now, this is the story, sir, everywhere. The story of the Western Ghat. Look at what happened in Madhav Gadgil report on the Western Ghat, and how the report is being changed over this thing by putting another committee.
But it is absolutely short-sighted, because if the road is destroyed within 4 or 5 years, it will not serve the purpose of defense also.
Exactly. But then they say, I have got a video clipping of General Rawat with me. General Rawat ji, when he came to his maternal home in Uttarkasi, one of the reporters took his interview. And the reporter asked him very clearly, and that was also put in front of the Honorable Supreme Court. The sir, do you require a wider road? He said, no. We want a road which is good enough, and there has to be a balance between the need and the environmental thing. He said it very clearly. So how do we go about it? I do not know, sir. But only way is nowadays people are coming up, and in fact, a lot of geoscientists. I have no hesitation in naming C.P. Rajendran. He is really very vocal. He's putting his viewpoint across. But then I can say that we could save 2 roads. There is one going from Rishikesh to Kedarnath, and second going to Yamunotri. These 2 roads have not been taken up for further widening. There the intermediate road width remains, but there are 3 roads which are the national security requirement. They will be widened.
So you are saying that Rishikesh to Badrinath road will remain same?
Rishikesh, no, it will be widened.
No, it will be widened.
That goes to the border. No? So that will be widened. That will be widened. Only thing is that they have now made a oversight committee by the needy people and some other people. They will be looking into how the things progress in order to make it disaster resilient. But the question is bigger, Santanu. Question is bigger. The question is bigger is that we have no idea how the Himalayan geomorphology, Himalayan Earth surface process is going to respond to changing climate boundary conditions. Not a single research is in that particular direction. I get a paper by a gentleman for a review saying that the 50% of Uttarakhand Himalaya is sensitive. And this same thing I would like those people to speak it out when it comes where it matters. They don't speak it there. Not that scientist speaks and people takes it up. That is not the case. But in this particular case, having seen the tragedy of 2013, where it was a wholesome devastation, we are still occupying the riverbeds. We are still look at the play. I remember Roger Williams' presentation in PRL. When the Muzaffarabad earthquake happened, the schools were destroyed. And the schools are known to be the place where you can go for shelter during the time of calamity. When the schools are destroyed, Williams said that. He said, people who constructed the schools should be brought in the square and should be hanged. Now look at, I gave you the example of the school there. Look at the school, where they are constructing the school. No effort, nothing, absolutely nothing.
I think Professor Chattopadhyay has something to comment. Anupam.
Hello, Naveen.
Yes.
Congratulations for an excellent talk.
Thank you.
I had one in general, very general question, not exactly related to your talk, but in general, because you have been fighting for these causes for a long time. We often talk about sustainable development. You have also used this term number of times.
Right.
Now, the question is, we see that this is more like an word. Should we not put what I'm thinking is philosophically, is there any kind of sustainability to development, or we should put a limit to development that yes, we cannot sustain beyond this? Because otherwise, you say, if I want to make a 4-lane highway to the Everest base camp, by whatever technology we used, is it sustainable at all?
No. But the question which you asked, yes, it is a fashionable word. Certainly, yes. I know that when I was doing my masters, that time after the masters I worked with CSC. Anil Agrawal was there. We started the CSC that time. We were working on the States of India's Environment 1983 report. That's the first report came in India by Anil Agrawal, which runs now by Sunita Narayan nowadays. Now that particular time, we were fighting against the big project. Eri Dam was coming up. We said we don't require the big projects. We require the run of the river scheme, where you don't hold the water, you allow certain height and then divert the water. Okay. Now that time it was a need of the hour, sustainability. Now that is also been defeated this time. We cannot go for it. So your question is a still open question. What is the sustainability limit? Shall we stop constructing any hydropower project? That is also not an answer. How best we can go about it? I'll again put sustainability into perspective. When we make the barrages, the water which trickles down valley, there is a thing called E-flow, that is environmental flow. And this task was given to the IIT Kanpur people to give us what is the minimum flow that should continue to flow on the river in order to sustain the aquatic biodiversity. Unfortunately, we don't have the data prior to the construction of the barrage, what kind of diversity exists over there. There only we can talk about what is going to happen, how much e-flow is required. So the sustainability is definitely a fashionable word, but time has come that we have to really go beyond it and find a way out. Nobody else is going to do for us.
Thank you. Anyone to raise your hand? I think Pradeep has something to say. Pradeep.
Sir, I wanted to discuss something about the Pelio fires. One slide you showed, little different from the central point of the talk. You said that most of these fires, or probably you are seeing a human presence in the history of fire in Garhwal. Can't it be some natural conditions also?
Yeah. Yes. Yes, you are very correct, Pradeep.
We have similar kind of record published from Ladakh. I mean, it's not a Pelio fire record, but certainly we could see that flood frequencies were higher in early Holocene, but the presence of HURPs, human fireplaces, were more in the late Holocene on the plain floodplains. And then we explored some peat sequence or a small puddle which dated back to between 3,000 to 1,000 years. And we have some records of fire that we cannot say that it's a fire, Pelio fire or forest fire, but certainly in Ladakh it can be termed as a hill slope fires or something like that. But we are not able to relate it to any of the climatic perturbations or something like that. So what made you think that it is human, not the climate?
Okay. This is the question which is I am also or we are struggling to find the answer to this. My motivation for this charcoal as an indicator of human-induced fire started from the very fact that a paper which appeared in Holocene from the Mandakini Valley, I forgot the Badani Lake. Badani Lake is a beautiful work done by based on the pollen and of course charcoal. Now, without pollen, simply charcoal cannot tell you the human occurrence. One thing. Second thing, if you're taking the micro charcoal, which is the case in our study. In our study, we are taking the micro charcoal. Micro charcoal can be aloft by the air and can be transported long distance, brought to the lake. That is another. So we have to work on the macro charcoal. When I say macro charcoal, it should be 250 micron bigger than that when you're sieving it. That also we have not done. So therefore, it's again a circular argument. Then what we are trying to do is this, that we are taking Badani Tal data where the people occupation have been identified at different temperatures and trying to see the concentration of the fire. Charcoals in the layers, and wherever we're finding high concentration, we are seeing certainly it is not being fired in this particular catchment, but the area around must have been under the fire for making the agriculture activity. We have not concluded anything at the moment, but certainly without pollen studies, it is very difficult to really point a finger towards the human. But then we also draw a little bit of strength by saying that in Srinagar area we have got Thapli and we have got the Rani Hat. These are two locations of the early Aryan culture sitting over there. We have got Malari. So people were there, and certainly when the people were there, probably they must be doing because the sedentary habit, pastoralism and agricultural activity was going on in this area based on the work of the Badani Tal by that Postdam group. So that is how I'm trying to see it. But you are very correct. No conclusion at the moment. This work we are about to complete the work, and we'll put it across the idea. Let us see how it goes. So, but I brought that particular slide in the perspective of, in this particular presentation, to suggest that indeed the people were moving in and out, things were happening, but the things have been accelerated over last 200 years and certainly in last 100 years.
Yeah, because I was struggling to isolate the natural signals, what actually triggered forest fires.
Right.
Yeah, that is the main question.
But then there is another paper which came by the Prasant Sanyal group from ISF Kolkata. They said they also speculated it in differently. I am saying if I can really demonstrate by some way that the lake of Benital, which is the 2,500 meter elevation, you have got a broadly forest over there. No resin species kind of plants are there. So then I can say that you are getting so much of charcoal, you are burning something. It is not natural. That's the argument Prasant used. That's the argument I was thinking of using anyway, but that's not it's not really conclusive at the moment. Thank you very much for this suggestion.
Thank you, Pradeep. Any more queries? So good talk.
Thank you.
So many things.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shah, sir. Dilip Shah, sir, are you there? Professor Dilip Shah?
Yes, I'm there. I'm here.
Yeah. Do you have anything to say?
Well, I mean, Professor Jual has started a hornet's nest, I must say. And really, as he said, really right at the moment, I mean, the community has to raise the voice. That is one way of bringing it into focus. I mean, otherwise, I mean, there is no way out. Not that we will succeed or fail. I mean, that's not the issue. But this has to be voiced. I mean, that's what is important to us. Thank you, Professor Jual, for bringing this point into focus. And you have been doing this throughout your career. I mean, that's excellent.
Thank you. But I must also acknowledge, I forgot to acknowledge, I used to, when we were fighting it out, I used to always watch. Professor Sunjal is here. He really fought tooth and nail on this issue. Professor Sati was there. Professor Pradeep being in an organization, he always used to speak his mind out. He was the odd man out there. So these kind of people used to give us a strength. And I was in PRL. In fact, I must tell you on record, I don't have any fear. Professor Goswami, my director, told me when I was inducted in the Supreme Court committee constituted by the Honorable Court in 2013 flood to investigate the bumper-to-bumper hydropower project role in the aggravating the flood of this thing. He told me, Naveen, hope you succeed. So that is the kind of encouragement you get from the organization. And when we reached to some conclusion, he said, Naveen, fantastic. He's very good. But mind you, so that is what your boss, where you are working, is encouraging. So, sir, Dilipda, we require that kind of support from the people. So there are people with whom we really work, and I think I'm not alone in the fight. So it's very good. Thank you very much.
I think all of us are with you.
Yeah, I know. So,
Yes,
and I've forgotten my friend Boka, Anida Sarkar. Great. He was giving us so much of support. Everything. He was writing left and right. So there are a lot of people. Then finally, what Professor Sir has said, that where we are today, I think we are not back to square one. We are at least raised some heat, generated some debate, and at least saved 2 roads out of 5. So that much we could do it, and I think I take a solace out of it.
We should congratulate you for this.
Not me, our entire team.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
I will request Professor Suipta Sengupta to make her comment.
So,
Madam, are you there?
Yes. I congratulated Professor Naveen Jiwal for a very topical talk.
Can you show your video footage so that it will be good?
Okay.
Yeah, we can see you.
Can you see me?
The first lady from Antarctica. You see, isn't it? Yeah,
I'm also a Himalayan lover, because when I was a student of geology, I started doing mountaineering also.
Oh, great.
And I did my first expedition in Ronti, where
Ronti?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I was there up in the peak. I mean, I was one of the climbers there. And I was on that glacier from where chunks of portion of, So I had also emotional connect with that part of Himalaya. I mean, I have emotional connect with all parts of Himalaya. And I, all the time, since every calamity is there, I mean, like everyone, I am very worried about this unrestricted development, so-called development. And I was wondering if it's possible for all of us, I mean, like SDGSI of our group, or I mean, like-minded people, we want to support you, but we are not vocal in the sense that we are not working on Himalayan geology or on that.
Not needed.
But at the same time, is there any way that to show our support?
Definitely, I can give you. I will give you the details of that. We are making a kind of small informal consortium where we all are there. Myself, I am the last man, but then we have got very good people like our historian. What is his name? I forgot his name in Bangalore.
Sekhar Pathak.
The Sekhar Pathak is in Uttarakhand. In Bangalore, that guy who writes so beautiful. What is his name?
Romil Thapar.
No,
I think Shantanu, you also try to collect all of us and
sure. I will do that.
Make some effort. I mean, whether
Ramchandra Guha, CP Rajendran, they're really vocal. They're putting up a lot of effort.
I mean, vocal people have their voice and they will be heard. But for us, most of the silence.
But you people, ma'am, you have got NAM in the field of art science. When you say something, people listen. So we really want you people to speak it out, whatever you feel about the problem associated with that. Devastation. See, I'm telling you honestly, if you go to Himalaya now, you might find road very beautiful to certain stretch, but suddenly you come across a halt. And you see the disaster in front of your eyes. Like, look at the road which I showed you, the tunnel. 500 crore rupees tunnel was constructed to bypass the town. Imagine in one rain, it is gone.
I mean, I haven't been to that part, but I've been to Eastern Himalaya from last, say, 60 years. And it's horrible. I mean, they're destroying it like anything. In the name of development, in the name of tourism, in the name of mountain climbing and all that. It's really going bad to us.
Yeah, ma'am. Tista, for example, Tista.
Yeah.
Furious river. Furious river.
Yeah.
This time Tista was in a
Terrible.
different shape.
Different
Different shape.
Terrible river. Anyway.
Anyway,
Okay.
Thank
we
you,
will
ma'am.
have some.
It's nice talking to you. I heard a lot about
Yeah,
you.
nice to hear.
I was an admirer of you. I was an admirer of you. The first lady to the Antarctica from our side. We used to see your pictures in the newspaper. So I'm
Thank
talking
you.
face to face. So nice.
Thank you. Nice to
Navinji,
see
is it
your talk.
Navinji?
Yes.
Navinji, is it possible to make, say, for example, a core group like you, in which you are there, you make kind of a white paper document on what is the ecological system or problems of the Himalayas from geology and other related
Right.
and we can write something in support of that document. When we read the document, we can sign or you can make a supportive statement.
Definitely. Professor Sundialji he's here. He was coordinating this particular work and he has got a lot of that kind of information. I think he can take a lead and we can all work together because he has got a very good capability of managing things. Professor Sundial, are you there?
Yeah. Yes, I'm here.
So you can think on this line because now people are coming forward.
Okay.
So let us make the consortium kind of thing and put. No, we are not blaming anybody. We are putting the science across in a very
No, we just want we want the best
we want to only name these are the alarm bells. You don't touch these portions or don't do this thing.
Absolutely.
That is how we should design. It is for the society only, not for ourselves. We live thousands of years away from miles away from Himalaya. How does it matter to me? But it matters to the society.
Definitely.
I just want to share one small story. During my field work near Helang, because I wanted to go to Malari, so I had to take some permission from Joshimath. So there are some police. So one day, one policeman said to me, "Okay, I have to talk to you." Okay, fine. So while I'm working in Helang, that person came to me and with another person, and he took me to some places in a terrace, saying that, "Can you say whether this place is okay for a hotel or something like this?" Just at the bank of Alaknanda. This is how it works there, you know. This is how it works, and it will get through. The permission will get through from the government at some cost. So this is how it works. So the things are lying there.
Yeah,
you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I know. But you see that the question is, Pradeep will agree with me that the paper which I showed you, so many paper came from the Ronti Guard stuff. Who cares? After the tragedy, the minister goes there, irrigation minister goes there. He says that in 6 months' time we'll open it up. Come on, the bodies are still inside. You have not taken the body even out, and you are not bothering about what we are writing. You go to hell. We'll go with our program. Imagine Kedarnath. In the Kedarnath destruction in January 2014, we were making a documentary with NDTV, and Colonel Kotiali will remember this. I'm making it because he was there. He was the man who really rebuilt the Kedarnath. And he asked me a question that time: what way the construction should go in Kedarnath? I said, certainly not the way it has been constructed in the past. Now the debris have come. Debris has come. They are 10 to 15 meter thick debris. They have not been compacted. You cannot really create big buildings over there because solifluction goes on. It will be cracked. But I am not expert. You please consult the Center Building Research Institute people. Now what happened? Huge Sankaracharya Samadhi is coming up behind the temple now. Huge RCC structure has come up. The point is, who cares? That is a problem. So, short-sighted memory toward the devastation and destruction is good to keep us going, but it should not be so short that it makes our life shorter. And that is what is happening in the Himalaya.
Thank you, Navinji. I think Professor Nibir Mandal will definitely say something.
Yes, I would be looking at the talk by Navinji in a different way. While going back to the early hours of the history of science, we always find there is science, even though it is practiced in the framework of society, there is always a gap between the two, science and society. And there are very few scientists who takes care or who shoulders the responsibility to minimize the gap all over the world. And in India, the situation is worse. We people like to work in the laboratory, caring little about how science can take benefit for the mankind. So there are very few people in India who do practice, who try to do something for this minimization of this gap, and Novinji is perhaps one of those few people.
Oh, come on. No, there are many people. There are many people
who dares standing against such oddities. That's the important thing, you know. I personally, I also do some little bit of science, but I find that the standing against the oddities is a really difficult something. So I really congratulate Novinji for taking this responsibility. So coming back to the science issues, now the Himalaya is not only the mountain chain in the world. There are many mountain chains like the Andes, the Alps. There are many. There also a good number of people are living in the mountain system. So my question to you, let us go to similar mountain belt which is still active, the Andes, where there are many continents covering that mountain system. How do those people negotiate, or they do not negotiate with the mountain system and the ecosystem in the mountain belt?
Navina, I had an opportunity to work in the Alps, not as a geologist, but as in a different format altogether. And you worked in the Alps, I think. So when I was there in that area, I'm told, and I think that was rightly told to me, that these are the people in the Alps, in Switzerland particularly, Swiss Alps, they are the master in making the tunnels. Tunnels were the technology developed by those people, and their majority of the road goes through the tunnels. That is one thing. So here in Himalaya, when we are talking about Himalaya, we have suggested to them that majority of the areas where chronic, see, landslides have become a reality. See, I'm told by a chief secretary once upon a time of Uttarakhand that Himalaya is full of surprise and you should be ready for the surprise. I said, oh, surprises when by definition does not come every day. If they come every day, then they're not surprised. So what is happening in the Himalaya, the surprises have become routine stuff. So we said that we gave them alternates. That these are the areas through which we should be tunneling, and in the tunnels we should be making the bypass. So that is one way to circumvent this problem in a dynamic orography. One thing. Second thing, in Swiss Alps, you know better, even the person who works on tree ring, his name is, I forgot, he must be knowing, I think, Pradeep must be knowing him. He works in Himachal Pradesh also.
Marcus.
That gentleman works on the tree rings, and he wrote a paper in Panas recently. And see how they work. See, I'm telling you, when you ask a very good scientific question, that in the tree ring, we work on the climate reconstruction. Okay. He also published paper in GRL and Panas and things like that. But he wrote paper in GRL on understanding the system, the Mediterranean extreme weather system, how it is impacting the slopes, and through the tree rings. As a consequence, how the slopes are getting reactivated, and that allowed them to create red, green, and yellow zone very clearly. And that's how they live. If you are in the red zone, not listening to the government, you will not get a single penny. Green zone, the safest zone. So that kind of exercise of delimiting the threat-prone areas using a sound scientific base, not just by looking at it. Nobody will buy that. Recently, he wrote a paper for the avalanche. It came in Penas in 2018 that the wet snow is going to increase in the time when it should not, based on the tree ring game. So this science, if can goes like that, it moves to the society. I'm telling you, when I was giving a lecture somewhere in New Zealand, the guy who works on the hydrology river system, he said, we at least bother about what you're talking about. 20,000 year, 20,000 year, that is good data. How we are going to use this knowledge for the society for their safety and security? Whatever paper, Nivir, with due regard to you, we have written is not great papers, honestly speaking. They are not great papers. We have to really come out of this kind of mindset and really make an international dent. Here it is. This is it. Why in Rontigard tragedy? Now a paper has come, very beautiful paper has come. I forgot to make a mention of it from NGRI group in science again. They said that because they have got an array of GPS all around Uttarakhand. So they said that now we can able to predict such kind of disaster in 10 to 20 minute time scale. Pradeep, you must be knowing that. When the whole thing avalanches out, it sends the tremor, and tremor can be recorded and identified the location, and you can warn the people down. That is the kind of paper we require. That kind of stuff. And once the paper is required, there has to be. See, Niti Aayog is sitting over there, making a lot of, showing a lot of concern. One of the concern is there how to rejuvenate the spring, and Professor Sundialji is working on that particular aspect. So, but when you give the concept to them, are they really translating the concept onto the ground? That is the problem. Yes. IIT Kanpur is giving the task of Ganga to provide us everything. Dr. Thate or somebody is there. He is the man who is heading it. What has come out of it now? Nothing. I have not seen anything. One of the concern which we had is a concern for the entire Himalaya. What is the environmental flow required to sustain the aquatic biodiversity downstream of the barrages? We don't have any data. कोई data नहीं हमारे पास में अभी we keep on obstructing the river. One fish is there called Mahasi. I'll give you a small example. Santanu, give me 2 minutes.
Yeah, sure.
One fish is called Mahasir. Mahasir is a unique fish which grows in the Himalayan water. Now, this fish has got a unique character. It breeds in the warm water tributary stream, which are groundwater fed. And it swims and takes the food in the cold water stream, that is the trunk river. Okay. Now you obstruct they are doing it. When you obstruct the trunk river, that means you are putting the water into the tributary stream. This fish, because the belly when grows with the egg, it requires a stone, warm stone to put a belly to lay eggs. You killed the whole thing. Mahasir will go away. Then what they did in Bhagirathi, the fish population gone, they brought a fish from China. And that China killed all the indigenous fish.
Right.
So the question is, so this is not a folly of the planners. This is the folly of lack of coordination between the planners and the scientists. As you rightly said, we sit in the cocoon and we think great about it. We say society is not our concern. Our concern is to write. I agree with you that we have to write a cutting-edge paper. That is very important. But somebody has to be there to take that science to the people.
Right. I completely agree with you.
This reminds me, last word, this reminds me of Richard Feynman's very famous line, how do I care what other thing, when the Challenger shuttle was exploded. He was showing to the senators that why it happened. And he took a liquid nitrogen thing and he took a boiling water thing. He took the ring out. O-ring was a culprit because the temperature outside to the flight was not conducive, told to him by the ground staff that don't launch it. But the American people were going to send a teacher on Teachers' Day, 24th November. They hell-bent upon launching the shuttle. Then he showed to them that this was the culprit. So he put the O-ring in the liquid nitrogen, it cracked. He put the O-ring in the hot water, it expanded. So this is a simple thing. Then he makes a statement. He says that if you can make your grandmother understand what physics you are doing, you understood physics. So, simple. So that's how our science is all about. Yes. Okay, thank you, Santan.
Nice. Just a minute. I think we have here your great friend Anil Shukla. Professor Shukla is there.
Where is he?
I think he's there. Are you there, Anil Shukla? No.
No, I'm seeing the list. He's not there.
Okay.
Santan is really.
Sir, he is present in the list.
He's there, but I think.
Yes, sir.
Anil Babu.
Yeah. Anilji here. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You want to say?
You have
any question?
No, sir. No, thank you. Yeah.
Oh, you don't have anything to say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Santanu.
Thank you very much for giving us an excellent talk, and I think we'll request you again to come back here.
Yeah, please. Every time.
So we should give Naveenji a big round of applause.
Okay.
I would request everyone to unmute and give a applause.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye then.
Bye.
Okay, thank you, Naveenji.
Bye.
Thank you, Pradeep.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I'll send you this link every month so that you can join every month.
It was forwarded to me by Sanjay sir.
Okay, I'll do that.
Add kar lijiye.
Sure, I'll do that.